So today we're going to be talking about the album Born to Run by Bruce Springsteen. I had to do a video on this today because it is the 50th anniversary of this album coming out today, August 25th, 1975. And I got the little cover here. One of the most iconic album covers, I believe. Can't really see it. If I flip this open. Of Bruce and Clarence there. This is the original sheet music book for the album. Not really sure how accurate it is, but it's in pretty good shape for being 50 years old. But I believe this is one of my favorite albums of all time, and I think it might be one of the best, at least classic rock albums of all time. Debatingly, I hesitantly say that because people always come up in arms about what is the best, who's the best guitar player, and it always generates some controversy. But I always just thought this album was a fantastic story in itself from front to back, and as it should be, because when Bruce made this album, it took him almost a year, basically, pretty much a year, many months of laboring, painstaking work by him, to where he probably almost had a mental breakdown, and drove the band members crazy, and saw some personnel changes with the drummer and original keyboardist leaving after they cut the song Born to Run, which is the title track, and eventually having to find a new drummer and new piano player, which wound up being Max Weinberg and Roy Bittan, who are still with the band today. So dealing with that, dealing with different songs, arrangements, and just being, a 25-year-old kid trying to do this, kind of amazing, the work. And the sound he was chasing in his head. And I'll talk more about that in a second. But I really think this is one of his best works. And at the very least, it was the album that kind of broke him. It wasn't as big of an album looking back on it as people think it was. But it saved him, because Columbia was very much going to drop him if this album did not work out well, because it was his third album. He had Greetings from Asbury Park as his debut album in early 1973. And later in 1973, he put out The Wild, the Innocent, and the East Street Shuffle. And he spent most of the year of 1974 on the road, just kind of touring and playing gigs, while also doing some sporadic recording until later in the year, which is when Born to Run got cut. So this was really the last shot that they had, and they kind of knew that, looking back on it, that the Columbia executives are kind of starting to leave, and their opinion of him was going foul. And so this is kind of it. And thank God that it all worked out for some clever marketing and stuff, and they were able to push it and go over to Europe for the first time for a very limited couple-date tour over there, and just tour the whole United States. And it worked out pretty well. And it gave them a base of fans that really, there had been fans, of course, before that, but starting with Born to Run, he really started to grow this fan base and this cult following that would continue on for, 50 years. It still is here today. I've met people that have been fans from around this time. They saw him when they were in college or whatnot, especially around college kids, because something that has kind of gotten lost, I think, with modern acts and modern touring is, back in started in the 60s, but really probably from the 60s to the 80s, a lot of acts like, Bruce at the time, Billy Joel, all these places, they were hitting up and touring and hitting these college arenas and sometimes college theaters too. But I think that really definitely helped them grow a fan base of younger college-age kids that you wouldn't otherwise have, especially if word of mouth on campus. It's something else anybody that's been to college or school could tell you. Going back to the album, there's some great guitar work on this, which is kind of funny considering he wrote all these songs on the piano in his home in Long Branch, New Jersey at the time. And he doesn't play the piano on any of these tracks. Roy Bittan does, I think, on all of them but Born to Run, which had David Sanchez on it, original keyboard player. But Bruce plays some great guitar, and there's just a lot of great guitar riffs and sounds that are on this. Take a peek at some of these. And of course, we'll have to talk about Clarence's sax playing on this as well. And the keyboard playing. As I had mentioned, Bruce wrote all these songs on the piano, but with Roy Bittan playing all these parts on these songs, he takes it to a whole nother level because he's this kind of virtuosic player.
Girl sitting on the hood of a Dodge, drinking warm beer in the soft summer rain. The rat pulls in the town, rolls up his pants. Together they take a stab at romance and disappear down Flamingo Lane.
For this album, Danny Federici was not kind of in the picture at the time. Never really has been addressed kind of what happened to him during the sessions. But at any rate, Roy Bittan was the one who played every keyboard part on this album, besides Born to Run. So he's, handling the organ, the piano, the glockenspiel. Lastly, I want to talk about the sound of this album. There's a particular sound to it that Bruce is going for, kind of like the Phil Spector 60s kind of thing. Which is why most of this album is pretty much in mono as opposed to stereo, which is very odd for it being 1975 at the time. But it adds a certain, it feels fresh, but it also feels, nostalgic and old. Kind of a very interesting juxtaposition. And while I would love to have high fidelity recordings of this in full stereo, I think it would kind of take away from what the album is, I'm not sure if it would have worked if they mixed it in stereo like it was 1975 at the time. And it kind of sounded like a Fleetwood Mac record or something, or an Eagles record. I don't know if it would work because it was kind of his own unique thing, an own unique style. I don't think there's really any other record at the time, really ever since probably, that really dug into that sound because that kind of had gone away once they came up with stereo because people loved separation of mixes and the higher fidelity that comes through it. And so Bruce, really dug into that and layered sounds with many, many overdubs. And you can kind of hear that, especially on Born to Run, which does have a lot of stereo separation in it, but there's many, many layers of guitars and all these things. And you can hear it on like Thunder Road, any of these songs, really. 10th Avenue Freeze Out's probably the most sparse full band song on the album. Of course, there's Meeting Across the River, but that's really just Bruce's vocal, a piano, an upright bass, and a trumpet, 10th Avenue Freeze Out is, probably the song that has the least amount of things going on it. It's a pretty straightforward kind of R&B song, Lastly, and I mean actually lastly this time, we can't not talk about the lyrics and the storytelling that's on this album. At this time, Bruce's sound starts to change, but his lyrics and storytelling is still pretty much very young Springsteen, kind of like the first two albums, really. It's evolving a little bit. You can kind of see, talking about the American dream and, I don't know, it's in a way, to me, feels like a coming of age album, when you're young, when you're a teenager and all these things, maybe. But it explores many, many different themes of betrayal and love and lust and all this, and getting away from your town and driving away and never looking back, this dreamlike thing, which in a way Bruce is kind of, I want to say stuck with that theme, but he continually revisits it and kind of, refreshes his take on it as he grew up, and growing older. But for now, it's a very innocent look at things, being young and kind of quote unquote stupid, you know. Also, fun fact, this is the last album cover to feature Bruce with a beard, which he would eventually shave off in 1976.